Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are going to check out another TNG release, and this is another one that was a little bit tricky at first because it wasn't one of the first string of figures that was kind of unveiled to us. It wasn't until they had shown off their entire line at a Hong Kong toy show where this figure was officially unveiled, and we have the Ankylosaurus here. And it looks really quite nice, honestly. I think the color scheme that they've chosen for it looks good. The coloration, like the tones of color, also looks quite nice. And just generally looks to be another really cool TNG release. You can see we've got the TNG logo up here. We've got the Ankylosaurus, again the species name. Nice image there of the figure. And then you can see up here on the top the TNG logo. Over here on the side you've got some information on the Ankylosaurus, which they usually put on these boxes. And then here on the back you can again see pretty much a mirror flipped image, and then on the underside some more information down there. So definitely excited to check this one out. Let's pop the box open and dive into this awesome looking Ankylosaurus. So here is our Ankylosaurus, and looks pretty much just like it did on the box. It actually looks really quite nice. Very nice looking coloration, again with the kind of like reddish tones, because we now know like Boreala pelta and stuff had like reddish tones to it, so I can appreciate the kind of like slight hints of like reddish tones to the color of this one. But again, just generally has a very highly detailed appearance to it. I honestly can say these TNG figures have been some of my favorite things out there today. Like, I have just been in love with this line, enjoying it to no end, and I'm getting kind of close to actually completing all of the line with the figures that have been unveiled so far, but there are definitely still a few that I need to get a hold of. Regardless, this Ankylosaurus definitely looks cool, so let's jump to a closer look at it right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our Ankylosaurus, you can see we've got some really nice texturing to the skin here in the face of the dinosaur. Definitely some really nice, quite highly detailed skin texture that you can see here. You can also see quite a bit of variation of color here in the face of the figure, as well as you have different variations of kind of like brownish and reddish tones. You also have like a darkening there around the eye socket. As you lead up here into the beak, you can see the beak is painted nicely. I like that it starts out in a darker tone, but then kind of transitions very smoothly to a grayish tone as you lead out. Same deal almost for the spikes here leading off of the head, same style of coloration. You can see the eye is painted really nicely, also sports a gorgeous gloss coat, so that shines very realistically. And you'll be able to see pretty much the same thing as you lead over here to the opposing side and take a look at this side of the Ankylosaurus. It looks really nice. And then if you look at it from the front, you can see that we do have kind of like a slight tilt to the head, which is pretty cool. If you lead up here to the top of the head of the Ankylosaurus, you can yet again see some really nice scale detail, also quite a bit of variation of color, as we have areas of like a blackish tone as well as the reddish tone. I can even see maybe like some slightly alternate shades, even like some slight hints of like browns showing up here and there, and it looks really good. As you move through and you lead down here into the neck and throat region, you've got more nice looking texturing to the skin, a lighter tone of color here for the underside of our Ankylosaurus. As you lead back here into the front leg, you've got some nice scoots up there in the shoulder area as you lead down the course of, well, leading from the shoulder down into the front leg. As you lead down, you can see the elbow sculpted out. You've also got a nice transition to some alternate tones of color leading down here into the leg, even down into the foot sculpt itself, which also looks pretty good. Nice bend in the wrist right there. You can see the elbow. As you lead back up to the stomach region, you can yet again see some very vibrant scale detail and skin texture here in the stomach region of the Ankylosaurus. And I don't know how good you can see it on camera, but there's kind of like a light wash that shows up sporadically through this figure that helps to highlight the detail, and I do see a little bit of it here in the stomach region of the Ankylosaurus, which looks really good. As you lead back here into the rear leg, you can see some nice muscle definition, also some kind of big, rough and rugged looking skin texture. As you lead back here through the course of the leg, you've got the kneecap right there, nice calf muscle as well, and then you lead down into the foot sculpt. Again, that foot sculpt looks really good, nice ankle and everything there, nice kind of creasing in the ankle. And then we lead out here into the underside of the tail, and we continue to have, again, that same style of skin texture as you move out here into the club tail. You can see some alternate variation of color there for the club tail. And then as you lead back here along the underside, you've got the cloaca present. I like that they've added a little extra color variation for that area. And you can even see kind of like some striping and stuff here on the underside of the Ankylosaurus. And then moving along the back of the Ankylosaurus, now on the upper side, you can see, of course, our very large scale detail. You can also see all of the armored areas and everything here running along the back of the Ankylosaurus. Definitely looks really cool. And this is basically what I was talking about earlier, where you could see that white wash kind of creeping through. And I think it looks really nice. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded seeing that white wash everywhere on the figure. I think or at least on the back here, I think it would have really highlighted the detail in a very nice way had it been running through the entire figure, but it still looks pretty good even for the areas that it does show up. You can see the spikes here leading along the side of the dinosaur also look really good, and I like how much color variation they've put in this. You can see like a variation of brown, almost like greens, darker tones. There's even a little bit of a dry brushing. There's just a lot of color added to that area, which is very impressive as you move along, and you can see every single one of those spikes has been given that treatment until you lead out here to these smaller ones, but even those looks like there was an attempt made at giving it that coloration. But you can see moving along the back on top of that wash, we again have like all the different variations of blacks, browns, and kind of like slight reddish hints and everything here moving along. It's kind of like a reddish brown as you move through. Looks really nice as you lead out into the club tail. The club tail as well sports some nice texturing, nice dry brushing there on the club tail, and again, yet even more color variation out there on the tail, which looks really cool. You're not going to see a whole lot of difference over here on this side. The dinosaur does have its head turned slightly to its right, but just barely. It also has a little bit of a tilt to the head. You can see the legs are almost positioned similarly, but both legs on this side are kind of leading a little bit more so than we see in the legs on the opposing side. But they look really quite nice, and the sculpt and paint and everything looks really quite nice as you move through here. Just pretty much the same as what we had seen on the initial side. The only other real difference is you can see the tail has a nice turn to it. It is turning toward its left. So that is another little bit of a difference. But again, a really cool looking Ankylosaurus. Honestly, even better than I expected it to be. As far as a size goes, for a length from the snout to the tail, about 9.5 inches, maybe a little bit over, or about 24, closing in at 24.5 centimeters. The highest point is going to be the tail, I think. Looks kind of like it might be the highest point, just shy of about 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters. And then to the back, well, maybe actually the back might be a little bit taller. It's tough to tell because it kind of goes back a little bit further, but maybe right around this similar size range as to where we saw the tail sitting. I don't know, it's tough to tell exactly. But for a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Ankylosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line next to our TNG Ankylosaurus. And you can see it's got a pretty good size, pretty much sitting right there in the size range you would expect it to be at. But I will say it is definitely a bit larger than I expected it to be. I don't know why. A lot of the TNG figures seem to be a little on the smaller side, so I kind of figured the Ankylosaurus would be as well. But to show you that as far as a comparison between different TNG figures goes, there is a comparison between the Ankylosaurus and the Carnotaurus, and very much so a larger figure we have here with the Ankylosaurus. The Carnotaurus is definitely quite a bit smaller. The same can pretty much be said for the woolly mammoth, or at least, of course, the length definitely goes to the Ankylosaurus. Height clearly is going to go to the mammoth, but that's because the Ankylosaurus is a pretty low-lying dinosaur. Then here is a comparison between different Ankylosaurus figures, as we have the Mojo Fun version of the Ankylosaurus next to the TNG version. We've also got a size comparison here next to a Mattel Ankylosaurus, which you can see the Mattel version is definitely a little bit bigger, as well as a comparison next to the Nanmu version, and these two look pretty cool next to each other. They almost look like they should be placed in a diorama together, even though the Nanmu version is definitely a little bit bigger than the TNG version. So this brand new TNG Ankylosaurus is definitely another really cool figure in quite the long line of cool figures. This brand has been honestly on fire, if you ask me, when it comes to producing some of the coolest figures I've seen in a very long time. And yet another really nice one here with this Ankylosaurus. As a whole, I think it sits right there in the same area as all of the previously reviewed TNG figures. So far, I think the only figure I've even been slightly let down by was their Velociraptor Blue style figure, and even that one still had its ups. It was just a little bit more downs than ups, and outside of that one figure, though, I think this line's been pretty stellar. And yet another really nice one here with the Ankylosaurus. The sculpt looks very good, very highly detailed, as pretty much any TNG figure always is. Very vibrant details, so it's very high quality, and a nice naturalistic pose for the Ankylosaurus. Nothing crazy, dynamic, out of the ordinary, just pretty much a standing or walking pose for the dinosaur. It looks pretty good. You've also got some very nice coloration to it, and the actual application of the paint is super smooth and realistic. They've done a good job of adding in lots of variation of color, all sorts of like washes. I like the light washes that show up here and there, and the reddish tones for the Ankylosaurus in general look really good. And again, just like with all of the other TNG figures, they have done a fantastic job on the paintwork on top of everything. So another super cool figure for the TNG line, one that I am beyond excited to have in my collection. A huge thank you again goes out to Dino Mike Mac, who was awesome enough to find this one for me and help me get it into my collection. If it does begin to show up at some point on stores like Aliexpress or eBay or anywhere where I can actually direct you to purchase one, I will update the description and add a listing. But right now I don't really know where you can grab this figure, but if you can find it, it's definitely worth picking up. Again, if I can find a listing, check the description. I may add one there once I find it, but regardless, let me know in the comments section what you guys think, and also like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.